3 weeks ago, silver dropped from $121 down to $74, and the internet exploded. Silver is crashing. The bull run is over. I told you it was manipulated. Sell everything. I watch people, smart people, panic sell physical silver they've been stacking for years. And I said nothing publicly. Not because I didn't have an opinion. Because I wanted to show you, not tell you. Lean forward. Slow down. Direct eye contact. So here we are. Silver is pushing back toward $80 this morning. The structural reasons I flagged 3 months ago have not changed. And the people who sold at $74 are already asking themselves uncomfortable questions. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly why what happened was not a crash. It was a trap, and I'm going to show you the specific data points. The ones your financial newsfeed isn't showing you. That tell me $90 is not a hope. It is a logical consequence. Stay with me, because this one matters. Let me take you back to what actually happened during that sell-off. Because the mainstream narrative was simple. Silver ran too hot. Retail investors chased it. Prices overcorrected. Classic bubble behavior. That narrative is clean. It's easy. And it is almost entirely wrong. Here's what actually happened. First, the drop was triggered at a very specific time. Not during peak trading hours. Not on the back of major economic data. It hit during a low liquidity window, which is exactly when you move price the most with the least amount of actual selling. Second, COMEX registered inventory, which is the actual physical silver available for delivery against futures contracts, did not increase during the price drop. Let me say that again because it's important. When silver crashed, the vaults didn't fill up, the inventory didn't grow, which means nobody was dumping physical silver into the market. What was being sold was paper. Futures contracts, derivatives. Third, and this is the one I want you to really sit with, lease rates. During the drop, silver lease rates stayed elevated. We're talking 7 to 8%. Some institutional sources were quoting north of 15%. If silver was genuinely being abandoned, if the bull case was over, lease rates would have collapsed. Holders would be desperate to lend their silver out, driving rates down. Instead, the people who hold physical silver held tighter during the price drop. That is not the behavior of a market that's crashing. That is a behavior of a market being shaken. There is a difference, and that difference is everything. Now I know exactly what some of you want to say right now. You want me to say manipulation. You want me to name the banks. You want me to draw a red string between the short sellers and the price action and give you a villain. And look, I'll be honest with you. I'm not going to pretend this market is clean. It obviously isn't. When COMEX can quietly move 250 million ounces of delivery obligations from May to July, just roll it forward like it never happened. That's not a free market mechanism. That's an institution protecting itself from a delivery it cannot make. One of the sharpest comments I've seen on this entire silver situation said exactly that. Someone noted that COMEX just pulled ounces from eligible stock into register inventory and then quietly shifted the delivery window, kicking the can. And they're right. But here's where I want to push back on the pure manipulation narrative, because I've seen the comment threads. I've seen people say it's all a cartel. Stay away from silver short term. The price means nothing. And that framing, while not entirely wrong, misses something critical. Manipulation works when there is inventory to manipulate with. When there is physical metal in the vaults, a large institution can flood the paper market with short contracts, drive the price down, shake out the weak hands, and then cover their shorts at a profit. Classic playbook. Has worked for decades. But what happens when the vaults run low? COMEX registered silver inventory has gone from 346 million ounces in 2020 to approximately 76 million ounces today, a 78% decline. And in a single week in January, 33 million ounces, 26% of what remained, walked out the door. Here's the uncomfortable question that nobody in the mainstream press is asking. Can you suppress a price with paper contracts when the physical metal those contracts are supposed to represent is running out? Because at some point, and I am not telling you exactly when, because I don't know, and anyone who tells you to know is lying, at some point the paper and the physical have to reconcile. And when they do, That reconciliation does not happen slowly. It happens all at once. That's not a prediction. That's arithmetic. Okay, so we've established what the drop was and what it wasn't. Now let me show you why the structural case for silver has not weakened during this pullback. It has deepened point 3 structural forces. All 3 are still active. None of them reversed during the sell-off. Structural force 1. The deficit is not closing. The world has consumed more silver than it has produced for 5 consecutive years. The cumulative physical deficit from 2021 through 2025 now exceeds 800 million ounces. The Silver Institute projects 2026 will be the 6th consecutive deficit year. Another 46 million ounces of consumption above production. Price going from $121 to $74 doesn't fix that deficit. It just changes the number on the screen while the vault keeps draining. Structural force 2. The refinery collapse is still happening. Between December 2025 and January 2026, in a 21-day window, 3 of the world's major silver refineries went dark. Johnson Matthey, Salt Lake City, gone. Metallurg, Switzerland, suspended. Heraeus, Germany, restricted. That's 68 million ounces of annual processing capacity removed from the pipeline. Then Asahi and Umicore followed. Another 58 million ounces restructured or withdrawn. And here's what people don't understand about refinery shutdowns. You can't restart a silver refinery the way you restart a car. These are not equipment failures that get repaired on a maintenance schedule. The reason these facilities went dark was because the financing model that kept them running collapsed. Large refiners have been providing interest-free advances to smaller processors, essentially floating them through the 30 to 60-day processing cycle. In October 2025, those advances got cut from 100% to 30% overnight. The economics stopped working. The facilities stopped operating. Getting the price of silver to $74 doesn't rebuild that financing model. Getting a new refinery built takes years. The Asahi replacement facility in Salt Lake City, they described it in filings as being in a construction phase expected to reach substantial completion at some indeterminate future point. Indeterminate future point. That is the actual language in the actual filing. On January 1st, 2026, China implemented silver export licensing requirements. China controls between 55 and 70% of global silver refining capacity. The moment China reclassified silver as a strategic resource, which is what export licensing does, every industrial buyer in the United States and Europe who had mentally penciled in Chinese refined silver as their backup supply lost that backup. Gone. And simultaneously, Mexico, which supplies more than 20% of global mine production, is moving toward its own raw silver export limitations. The overflow valves at the Western industrial supply chain was depending on our being closed, one by one, without much fanfare, without CNBC covering it. None of this changed when silver dropped to $74. None of this gets fixed if silver stays at $78. The structural picture is not better than it was at $121. It is worse, because the deficit is a month deeper. The refineries are still dark, and China's restrictions are now fully in effect. So, $90. Let me be precise about what I mean and what I don't mean. I am not telling you silver is going to $90 next week. I am not telling you it's going to $90 next month. Markets are not that predictable, and anyone pretending otherwise is selling something. What I am telling you is this. Shanghai silver is currently trading at roughly a 10% premium above COMEX futures. Under normal market conditions, that premium disappears almost instantly. Arbitrageurs buy cheap silver in New York, ship it to the higher-priced Asian market, and close the gap. That gap is not closing. It's not closing because the metal that would normally flow, to close it cannot flow. Export restrictions, tight inventories, refinery constraints. When arbitrage breaks down across 2 of the world's largest trading centers, when a mechanism that's supposed to keep global prices coherent stops functioning, what you're looking at is not a temporary inefficiency. You're looking at 2 different physical realities wearing the same price tag. Now, COMEX registered inventory is at 13.4% coverage. Below 15% is historically flagged as stress territory. We are in stress territory. Lease rates are still elevated. Physical premiums above spot are still elevated in dealer networks. And demand is not going anywhere. Solar manufacturers consume more than 25% of annual global silver supply in 2024. Solar installation capacity grew 64% in the first half of 2025. Electric vehicle demand for silver jumped an estimated 20% last year. These buyers don't get to decide they don't need silver because the futures market had a bad April. Apple doesn't stop making iPhones. Solar farms don't stop needing photovoltaic cells. Defense contractors don't stop needing silver contacts and guidance systems. The demand is structural. The supply is structurally impaired. And the price gap between what the paper market says and what the physical market is doing has not closed. $90 is not a prediction based on chart patterns or technical analysis. $90 is what happens when a market that has been artificially held below its physical clearing price starts to move toward equilibrium. How fast? I don't know. Whether there are more shakeouts on the way? Probably yes. Whether the structural conditions that make $90 logical have changed? No, they haven't. All right, this is the part most silver analysts skip, because it's uncomfortable. They'll give you all the structural data, all the deficit numbers, all the geopolitical angles, and then they'll say, not financial advice, do your own research and disappear. So let me actually try to be useful here. If you sold during the drop to $74, don't beat yourself up. Volatility at that speed is genuinely scary. But ask yourself one question before you decide your next move. Did the structural reasons you originally bought silver change? Did the deficit close? Did the refineries reopen? Did China reverse its export restrictions? If the answer to those questions is no, and it is, then your thesis didn't break. Your nerve did. That's human. Now decide what you want to do with that information. If you're holding physical silver right now, the comment that stuck with me, and I want to read this directly because it's exactly right. Someone said, if you can afford it, keep stacking. Who knows what's going to happen, but at least you'll have a lot of something very tangible and actually worth something. That is not a sophisticated macro argument, but is the most honest thing said about silver in any comment thread I've read this month. The people who have been through silver cycles before know this feeling. The shakeout is the feature, not the bug. It's how weak hands become strong hands. If you're watching from the sidelines, you're asking the right question, which is, have I missed it? And the answer depends entirely on why you be buying in the first place. If you're looking for a quick trade, I genuinely cannot help you. If you're building a position because you believe the physical supply-demand math eventually resolves into a much higher price, then the question of whether you buy at $78 versus $121 versus $74 is less important than whether you buy at all. But again, your money, your risk, your decision. I'm here to share how I'm thinking through the data, not to tell you what to do with your money. Here's where I want to leave you. There's a question that nobody is asking clearly enough right now. What exactly is the paper price of silver measuring? At $78 per ounce this morning. That price is derived from a futures market where registered inventory coverage has fallen to 13.4%, where the financing infrastructure of the refining network collapsed beginning last October, where the primary industrial consumers of silver are now competing simultaneously with institutional accumulators, defense procurement chains, and a global energy transition that requires more silver per year than the world is currently mining and refining. That $78 number reflects a derivatives market that was designed to price a commodity with a functioning delivery pipeline. The pipeline is impaired, and the price is not fully reckoned with the impairment. The drop to $74 was not the story ending. It was a story testing you. It was a market asking, do you actually understand what you own and why? Or were you just riding momentum and hoping it continued? For the people who understood the structural picture, who had done the work before prices moved. The drop to $74 was a gift, not a comfortable one, but a gift. Whether $90 comes in 30 days or 90 days or 6 months from now, I genuinely don't know. But the architecture of this market, the deficits, the refinery shutdowns, the vault drainage, the geographic concentration, the lease rate signals, that architecture is pointing in one direction, and it is not down. If this kind of structural analysis is what you come here for, not hype, not price predictions dressed up as certainty, but an actual working through what the data means and why it matters, then hit subscribe. Because the next video I'm working on is going to answer the question several of you have asked directly in my comments. What happens when COMEX registered inventory hits single digits? Not if, when. That video goes up this week for people who are subscribed. Before you go, I need 2 things from you in the comments. Question 1. Were you holding silver during the drop to $74? And if you were, did you hold, buy more or sell? I want to know, because that data, the actual behavior of people who are paying attention, tells me more than most analyst reports. Question 2. The most interesting debate in this space right now is this one specific question. Is the paper price of silver still a reliable signal for what physical silver is actually worth right now in the real world? Yes or no? And tell me why. The best answer in the comments gets pinned. And I mean the best argued answer. Not the most bullish. Not the most bearish. The most reasoned. I'm John. This is Boring Currency. And I'll see you on the next one.